Hello, welcome to our channel. So, I'm Shilpa Nagaraju and I am presenting you the UPSC APFC examination syllabus portion of Indian art and culture. So, in our previous classes, we have seen the art and architecture of the Indus Valley civilization, Mauryan time art and culture, and post Mauryan Guptan age, and also we saw the temple architecture in part 1. Now, we saw the Nagara style of art and architecture. Now let's see in the how the temples were constructed in the East India and also in the Southern India. So let's start our class. Before starting our class, let me introduce you to myself. I am Shilpa Nagaraju. I have 6 years of teaching experience online and offline. I've completed my master's in public administration and pursuing my PhD. I've given my UPSC CSE interview and also qualified UGC NET with 6 years experience in the government sector. So please like and subscribe to our channel and also share our video links with the fellow aspirants and also motivate us. This will definitely motivate us. And please leave the comments how you're finding the videos coming up and all. So let's continue with the temples of East India. The East Indian temples include those found in the northeast, Bengal, and Odisha, and each of these three areas produces a distinct type of temple. You can see here in the image the Jagannatha temple of Odisha. The history of architecture in the northeast and Bengal is very hard to study because a number of ancient buildings in those regions were renovated, and what survives now is later the brick or concrete temples at those sites. So we can easily say that these area temples were mainly constructed of terracotta. A large number of sculptures we have found in Assam and Bengal shows the development of important regional schools in these regions. So let's see Assam in focus first. Here in the image you can see an old 6th century sculpted door frame. This is seen near Da Parvatiya near Tezpur of Assam, and another few stray sculptures like this from Ranga Gorati estate near Tinsukia in Assam. They are witness to the import of the Gupta idiom in this region. So you can say the influence of Guptan architecture was seen in the Assam region as well. The post-Guptan style continued in this region of Assam also till the 10th century. But in the 12th and 14th century, the region of Assam saw a distinct regional style developing. Now, how did this regional style develop? Because there was a migration of Thais from the upper Burma region. They mixed their own style with the dominant Pala style of Bengal, and this led to the creation of what was later known as the Ahom style of temples in and around Guwahati region. So the best example is Kamakya temple, which is a Shakti Peeth dedicated to goddesses Kamakya, and it was built in the 17th century. A best example of Ahom style of art and architecture in Assam region. So the next one is Bengal. The style of sculptures which were developed during the period between 9th and 11th centuries in Bengal, it also includes Bangladesh and Bihar, is known as the Pala style. It was known as the Pala style because it was named after the ruling dynasty at that time. The style in the mid 11th and mid 13th centuries is named after the Shena kings, while the Palas are celebrated as the patrons of Buddhist monastic sites. The temple of the region is known to express the Vanga style. The Siddheshwara Mahadeva temple in Bardwan, West Bengal, was built in 9th century. shows a tall curving shikara crowned by a large amalaka. It is an example of early Pala style. So the left temple is the Siddheshwara Mahadeva temple in Burdwan of West Bengal. This is an example of early Pala style. It was built during 9th century. The many of temples built from 9th to 12th centuries of Bengal were located as Telkupi in Puruta district of West Bengal. They were submerged when dams were constructed in the region. The architecture of these temples heavily influenced the earliest Bengal Sultanate buildings at Gaur and Pandya. Many local vernacular building traditions of Bengal also influenced the style of the temples in that region. The most prominent of these was the shape of the sloping or curving side of the bamboo roof or of a Bengali hut. This feature was eventually even adopted in Mughal buildings and is known as Bangla roof across India. See here, this is a right side. You can see the Kamakya temple, Shakti Peeth in Guwahati of Assam, and the left is an excellent example of early Pala style construction, the Siddheshwara Mahadev temple in Burdwan of West Bengal. So let's talk now about the Kalinga architecture, which is seen in the region of Odisha. The main architectural features of Odisha temples are classified in three orders. First one is the Rekha Pida or the Rekha Dyula or the Rataka Dyula. First, understand the Rekha means a line, and it is a tall straight building with the shape of a sugar loaf. It covers the Garbhagriha. Fidadiula is a square building with a pyramid shaped roof, and it is mainly found for the housing of outer dancing and offering halls. It's like a mandapa of south temples. Khakra Diula is a rectangular building with a truncated pyramid shaped roof. The temples of the female deities are usually in this form and will have a resemblance with the Dravidian temples of the south. So please understand, most of the ancient temples which were located in the ancient Kalinga, which is now the modern Puri district, including the Bhubaneswar or ancient Tribhuvaneshwar, Puri and Konark. The temples of Odisha constitute a distinct substyle within the Nagara order. In general, the shikara called Diol in Odisha style is very vertical almost until the top when it suddenly curves sharply inwards. The mandapas in Odisha are called Jagamohanas. The ground plan of the main temple is almost always square, which in the upper reaches of its superstructure becomes circular in the crowning. The exterior of the temple is lavishly curved while their interiors are generally quite bare. The Odisha temples usually have outer walls. Next is the hill temples. The hill temples, the unique form of architecture developed in the hills of Kumaon, Garhwal, Himachal and Kashmir. Kashmir's proximity to the Gandhara site such as Takshashila, Peshawar, northwest frontier, left the region a strong Gandhara influence by the 5th century Common Era. This began to mix with the Gupta and post-Gupta traditions that brought to it from Sarnath, Mathura and even the centers in Gujarat and Bengal. Both Buddhist and Hindu traditions began to intermingle and they spread in these hills. The hills also had their own tradition of wooden building with pitched roofs, and as a result, while the main Garbhagriha and Shikara were maintained in the Latina or the Reka Prasada temple. The Mantapa is an older form of wooden architecture. Sometimes the temple itself takes on a pagoda shape. The Karkota period of Kashmir is the most significant in terms of architecture. So the most important examples of these regions are Pandretun, Lakshana Devi Mandir, Jageshwar near Almoda and Chamravat near Pittorgarh. So these are excellent examples of the Nagara style of architecture. Now let's see the Dravida or the South Indian temple architecture. You can see in the right of this PPT the image of a Gopura of the South Indian temple. So unlike the Nagara temple, the Dravida temple is enclosed within a compound wall. So a Nagara temple is not enclosed within a compound wall, but yes, the Dravida temple is enclosed within a compound wall. The front wall has an entrance gateway in its center, which is known as Gopura or Gopuram. The shape of the main temple tower is known as Vimana or Shikara in Nagara style. The Vimana is like a stepped pyramid that rises up geometrically rather than the curving Shikara of North India. In South India, the word Shikara is used only for the crowning element at the top of the temple, which is usually shaped like a small stupika or an octagonal cupola. This is equivalent to the Amalaka or Kalasha of the North Indian temples. North Indian temples have the images such as Mithunas or erotic and river goddesses like Ganga and Yamuna guarding the temple. But in the Dravidian style of temple architecture, instead of these sculptures, we see the sculptures of fierce Dwarapalas or the doorkeepers guarding the temple. A large water reservoir or a temple tank enclosed in the complex is general in South Indian temples. Subsidiary shrines are either incorporated within the main temple tower or located as a distinct separate small shrine besides the main temple. So you can see here in the image a South Indian temple, typical one. There is a Gopuram at the beginning. Then you have the mount or the animal in front of the mantapa. There is a mantapa and you have a Vimana and Shikara and a Garbhagriha where the main deity is placed. So this is enclosed within a compound wall, unlike the North Indian temples. So as I told you, the subsidiary shrines are either incorporated within the main temple tower or located as a distinct, separate, small shrine besides the main temple. The North Indian idea of multiple shikaras rising together as a cluster was not popular in the Dravidian style. At some of the most sacred temples in South India, the main temple in which the Garbhagriha is situated as in fact one of the smallest towers. But in North India, the Garbhagriha is just under the tallest towers. But here it is not like that. This is because it is usually the oldest part of the temple. That's why the sacred temples of South India has Garbhagriha as one of the smallest towers. When the population and size of the town associated with the temple increased, it would have become necessary to make a new boundary wall around the temple and also associated structures. So an example of this type of temple is the Sri Rangam temple at Trichy or Tiruchirappalli, which has as many as 7 concentric rectangular enclosure walls, each with a gopura. So in the south or in the north, please understand that these temples were sign of power for the rulers. It had a lot of wealth. So whenever there was a clash between the rulers or attack on the kingdoms, the attacking kingdom used to first venture out to the temples because it was a sign of power and wealth of the ruler. So the outermost is the oldest, while the tower right in the center housing the Garbhagriha is the oldest one. The Nagara architecture has subdivisions, but the same way Dravida temples also have subdivisions, and they are basically 5 different types. Kuta or Chaturashra, that is square. Shala or Ayatashra, that is rectangular. Gajaprishta or Vrittayata, that is elephant backed elliptic. Vritta was circular, Ashtashra was octagonal. So different dynasties have contributed to the art and architecture of South Indian temples, and let's learn one by one about them. So the right side image is an example of Pallava architecture, and the contributions of Pallavas to the temple architecture of South India is very remarkable. So let's read about the Pallavas contribution to the southern or the Dravidian style of temple architecture. So the Pallavas were one of the ancient South Indian dynasties that were active in the Andhra region from the 2nd century onwards and moved south to settle in Tamil Nadu. Their history is better documented in the inscriptions in stone and several monuments. Although they were mostly Shaivites, several Vaishnava shrines also survived from the region, and there is no doubt that they were influenced by the long Buddhist history of the Deccan. The early buildings of Pallavas were rock cut, while the later ones were structural. Structural buildings were well known to them when rock cut ones were also being excavated. The early buildings are generally attributed to Mahendravarman I, the contemporary of Chalukya King Pulikeshi II of Karnataka. Narasimhavarman I, who was also known as Mamala, acceded the throne around 640 Common Era. He expanded the empire and also inaugurated most of the building work at Mahabalipuram, which is known after him as Mamalapuram. So let's see the shore temple at Mahabalipuram in Tamil Nadu. So it's a structural temple, as you can see in the right side of the slide, and was built during the reign of Narasimhavarman II, who is also known as Rajasimha. The temple is facing east towards the sea and has three shrines, east and west to Shiva and the middle for Vishnu Anantashayana. This is unusual because temples generally have a main single shrine and not three areas of worship. This shows that it was probably not originally conceived like this, and different shrine may be added at different times. In the compound, there is an evidence of a water tank, which is an early example of a gopuram, and several other images. The sculpture of the bull Nandi, which is Shiva's mount, is in lines of the temple walls. The temple has suffered several severe disfiguration due to erosion by salt water laden air over the centuries. The Pallava temple architecture can be classified into four groups according to the rulers and the features of the temples they constructed. So the first one being the Mahendravarman group. The early temples of the Pallavas belonged to King Mahendravarman I of the 7th century. They were rock cut temples, as you can see in the image, and they were also influenced by the rock cut architecture. The best examples are Mandagartapu, Mahendravadi, and Trichy Extra. The second group of temples are Narasimha or Mamala group. As you can see in the image, this is the second stage of Pallava architecture and started when Narasimhavarman I or Mamala came to the throne. The architecture is represented by monolithic rocks. The monolithic rocks and mantapas of the Mamalapuram are excellent examples of Narasimha or Mamala group of temples. The five rathas are popularly known as Pancha Pandava rathas. As you can see here, they have five temples for the Pancha Pandavas. The next group of temples was by Rajasimha. The group was under Narasimhavarman II, who was also known as Rajasimha. He introduced the structural temples, as you can see in the image below, and Gopura style in the Pallava architecture. The Kailashnath temple at Kanchi and the Shore temple at Mahabalipuram are excellent examples of Rajasimha group of temples. The last one is the Nandivarman group. The architecture mainly under the Pallava king Nandivarman Pallava. They are also representing the structural temples, but they are generally small compared to other groups of Pallava temples. The Vaikunta Perumal temple of Tirunalveli and Mukteshwar temples are the best example of Nandi Varman group. So in the next video, we will see about the Cholas contribution, the Vesara or the Deccan temple architecture, the contribution of Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas, Hoysalas, Vijayanagara, and also the influence of Buddhist and Jain temples in this region. So please keep revising the lessons and also connect your history part of syllabus. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe to our channel and also share our videos with the fellow aspirants.